Some of the best comic characters never came from Marvel or DC, and this video feels like almost a continuation of that last one about great comics outside the big two. This time, instead of the books, we are looking at the characters who made those worlds so memorable in the first place. If you're into comics and nerd content like this, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Exo Manowar begins with Auric of Dacia, a Visigoth heir captured by the alien Vine, who steals their sentient armor and returns to Earth to find that 16 centuries have passed. That setup made him stand out when he debuted in Exo Manowar #1 in February 1992, created by Jim Shooter, Steve Englehart, Bob Layton, and Barry Windsor Smith. He never felt like just another armored hero, because Shanhara made him feel ancient and cosmic at once. What pushed the character further was how much history stacked onto him after that. The armor gives Auric flight, invulnerability, energy blasts, camouflage, technopathy, and instant translation, while the 90s boom helped Exo Manowar #0 sell around 800,000 copies. He also crossed into gaming beside Iron Man and heavy metal, and later Acclaim rebooted the mantle by replacing Auric with Donovan Wiley, proving how flexible the concept really was. Shadowman is one of those heroes who instantly feels different, because Jack Boniface was built around New Orleans, voodoo, and the war between the living world and dead side instead of the usual cape formula. He debuted in 1992, created by Jim Shooter, Steve Englehart, and David Lapham, and the core idea was already strong. A reckless young man becomes the latest guardian against forces too dark for ordinary heroes out there at night. What made him even more memorable is that Shadowman was never just about spooky visuals. Jack draws his power from the Shadow Loa, a spirit tied to his bloodline, and that mythology helped the character expand into games too, most famously with Shadowman in 1999. Years later, the franchise even returned with Darky Legacy, proving that this strange supernatural corner of Valiant never really disappeared for comic fans either. Bloodshot works because even his identity feels unstable. Depending on the era, he is Angelo Mortali, Ray Garrison, or a weapon built from broken memories, which fits a character defined by manipulation from the start. He first appeared in 1992, created by Kevin Van Hook, Don Perlin, and Bob Layton, and his whole concept was built around nanites in his blood, turning him into a pale, red-eyed super soldier built for Black Ops jobs. That idea gave Bloodshot more than brute force. The nanites let him heal, boost his strength and reflexes, reshape his body, interface with machines, and survive damage that should kill anyone else. But the real hook is that his past is always in question. That made him flexible enough to survive reboots and big enough to jump into a 2020 movie with Vin Diesel, even after theaters shut down almost immediately worldwide that year. Radiant Black starts in a way most superhero books never would. Nathan Burnett is not a polished savior, but a struggling 30-year-old buried in debt, failing at 2 jobs and moving back in with his parents before a cosmic force changes everything. That grounded setup defined the book from its 2021 debut at Image, where Kyle Higgins and Marcelo Costa built a modern hero story around burnout, bad luck, and sudden power fast. What really pushed the character higher was the twist that the powers do not truly belong to Nathan, and the beings behind the Radiant want them back by any means necessary. The series also kept evolving instead of standing still, because Marshall Ward stepped in as Radiant Black after Nathan fell into a coma, and that momentum helped turn the book into the flagship title of the massive verse instead of just another indie launch. Rogue Sun comes in with a stronger hook than most new heroes because Dylan Siegel does not inherit a clean legacy, but the mantle of a murdered father he spent years resenting. First teased in Supermassive and launched into his own 2022 series from Image, Dylan learns that New Orleans' fallen protector was Marcus, his estranged father, and that he is now expected to carry a supernatural role he never asked for or prepared for. That is what gives Rogue Sun real personality. Dylan is not just learning powers, he is trying to solve his father's murder while fighting occult threats and unpacking years of anger toward the man behind the mask. Ryan Parrott and A. Abel used that setup to make him one of the core faces of the massive verse, helping the character feel like more than a side launch tied to Radiant Black, and more like a hero with his own emotional weight. Madman feels unlike almost any superhero because Frank Einstein is less a polished crime fighter than a stitched-together mystery with a pop art soul. Mike Allred introduced the character in 1990, and even the name tells you how strange he is, blending Frank Sinatra, Albert Einstein, and Frankenstein into one identity for a resurrected man who barely remembers who he used to be before his life was violently torn apart and rebuilt. That weirdness is exactly why the character lasts. Before becoming Madman, he was Zane Townsend. Then a car crash, 2 scientists, and a second life turned him into an amnesiac drifter with agility, reflexes, psychometry, empathy, and flashes of clairvoyance. He even appears in Invincible number 60 during the Invincible War, which helped place him inside one of Image Comics' most memorable and chaotic crossover moments ever for readers. Nexus stands out because Horatio Hellpop is not a hero chasing glory, but a man trapped in a brutal cosmic job. Created by Mike Baron and Steve Rude in 1981, the series mixes superhero action with science fiction 500 years in the future, and its core idea is still wild. An alien entity called the Merc gives Horatio incredible power, then forces him to execute mass murderers or be tortured by the suffering of their victims. That moral burden is what made Nexus so different from standard capes. Horatio does not hunt villains for fame or justice alone, because every target reaches him through agonizing visions, headaches, and nightmares that physically wreck him until the cycle is complete. The series went on to win multiple Eisner Awards, and that acclaim helped cement Nexus as one of the smartest and most respected independent hero books of its era. Black Hammer feels different because Joseph Weber was never built like a flashy superstar, but like a working-class legend with myth hanging over him. Jeff Lemire and Dean Ormston launched the series in 2016 for Dark Horse, while Weber's place inside that world reaches back to an earlier heroic era. A social worker and cook became Black Hammer after lifting a mysterious weapon meant only for someone truly worthy and pure of heart. That grounded origin is what gives the character weight. Joe was tied to ordinary people before he ever became a symbol, and the book used that human base to build one of the smartest indie superhero universes of the modern era. Black Hammer won the Eisner for Best New Series in 2017, expanded through major spin-offs, and even crossed over with the Justice League, which says a lot about the respect the property earned beyond Dark Horse. The Goon stands out because he feels like a gangster, a monster fighter, and a punchline all at once. Eric Powell launched the series in 1999, and it quickly built a cult following by mixing mob crime, horror, slapstick, zombies, mad science, and ugly street brawls into one filthy world. Even before the version most readers know, Powell had already tested the idea in earlier work, which helped the Goon arrive feeling strangely complete. That chaos is exactly why the book lasted. The Goon became one of the great independent cult comics, won multiple Eisner Awards, and built enough love to inspire a long-discussed animated film project backed by Blur Studio and David Fincher. The Kickstarter for that movie cleared its goal with support from thousands of fans, which says everything about how loyal the audience became around a book that never acted like a normal superhero comic. Plutonian works as a hook instantly because Irredeemable starts with the worst possible question: what happens when the world's greatest superhero becomes its greatest villain? Mark Waid and Peter Krause built the series for Boom, studios around that collapse, turning Plutonian from the Protector into a walking catastrophe. Instead of treating him like a simple Superman echo, the book makes his fall feel terrifying, intimate, and painfully human. That is what made Plutonian so memorable. Irredeemable ran for 37 issues, sold over 1.5 million copies, and became one of Boom's defining series because it pushed the idea of superhero breakdown further than most books ever dared. The property stayed strong enough to earn a Netflix film announcement, with Jamie Samuel directing and Kemp Powers writing, proving that the premise still had real power long after the original run ended. That was our look at 10 characters from 10 different comics outside Marvel and DC, and it proves there are great ideas far beyond the biggest names. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and comment which character surprised you the most. Subscribe to Nerd Society for more hidden gems and comic book videos.